Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Our top story tonight is about a stern warning from the Russian president to Ukraine's backers. Vladimir Putin wants them to back off. What is on the Russian leader's mind? What really lies ahead? And how will the US and the UK take Putin's warning? On Gravitas, we decode the developments for you and get you the bigger picture. And here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. Is Hezbollah using a copy of an Israel missile against Israel? We tell you all that you need to know. Has Pakistan become the new Lebanon? We tell you why this question is being asked in the first place. Home is the most dangerous place for women. We get you the bone-chilling findings of a UN report and what they tell us about the safety of women. All this and more coming up. Our top story tonight on Gravitas is about Russia. Days ago, when Russia fired its new experimental hypersonic missile into Ukraine for the first time, President Putin also issued a warning to Ukraine's backers. He told them to back off. And by them, I mean Britain. He warned that the weapon which has struck Ukraine is designed for a decisive strike on them. Putin may not have spelled out Britain's name specifically, but he clearly meant attacks on the US and the UK. We'll tell you why. Let's start off with the latest updates first. According to reports, a British man has been captured by Russian forces while fighting for Ukraine. In a video circulating online, which we cannot show you, a man dressed in military clothing identifies himself as James Scott Anderson. He says he formerly served in the British Army. In fact, Russian state news agency TASS reported a military source calling him a UK mercenary that had been taken prisoner in the Kursk area of Russia. Remember, that is the Russian region where Ukraine has held territory since launching a surprise offensive in August, or at least claims to have held territory. The British Foreign Office has said that it is supporting the family of a British man following reports of his detention in Russia. In fact, Anderson's father has told media outlets in Britain that he had begged him not to go to Ukraine. According to his father, reportedly, Anderson still went to Ukraine because he thought he was doing what was right. In the video, which was first posted on the messaging app Telegram, Anderson tells a man questioning him from behind a camera that he served as a private in the British Army. He says that he joined Ukraine's International Legion, which is a military unit basically made up of foreign volunteers, after losing his job and seeing reports on television about the war. Anderson was captured from Kursk, where Russia has moved about 50,000 of its troops along with North Korean soldiers reportedly. And Russia has started taking back parts of Kursk, with Ukraine starting to take a beating. The way things stand today, Ukraine has lost over 40% of the territory it captured. Russian forces have mounted waves of counter-assaults. According to news agency Reuters, in fact, Ukraine's hold on Kursk region has been cut to 800 square kilometers from 1,376 at the start of the incursion in the month of August. But you see, Ukraine is not just taking a beating in Kursk. At home, it is struggling to keep hold as its front lines continue to crumble. Russian forces have reportedly made threatening advance in East Ukraine's Donetsk region. And as a result, Ukraine is trying to disrupt Russian supply lines with strikes deep inside Russia. How are they doing it? No points for guessing. Through long-range strikes enabled by the easing of curbs on the use of Western-supplied missiles. But here's the thing. Putin was not lying when he said that there was no counter for Russia's hypersonic missiles following Ukraine's firing of British-made long-range Storm Shadow missiles at military targets inside Russia. Russia responded by firing missiles and drones, including the new Oresnik hypersonic missile at Dnipro. Ukraine claims to have intercepted some of the missiles, but the effort is proving expensive, to say the least. Ukraine had to use 32 Patriot missiles to counter Russia's hypersonic threats. Ukraine's use of British Shadow missiles against Russia has escalated tensions, making the UK, along with the US, legitimate targets for Russia. And following the firing of the Oresnik missile, which was initially mistaken for an ICBM, remember, by Ukraine, Putin issued a warning and boasted about the situation. I'm quoting, "I recommend that the ruling elites of those countries that are hatching plans to use their military contingents against Russia seriously think about this." Now, if there was any doubt about who that was meant for, here's more proof. Take a look at these visuals coming up on your screen. Russia's Oresnik is actually one of its most dangerous weapons. CCTV footage captured on the day of the attack, that is November 21, showing multiple bright flashes raining down from the sky in Ukraine's Dnipro. It shows that Oresnik appears to have multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles, which means that it has separate warheads able to hit different targets. You know what that means? It basically means that Oresnik has enormous destructive power. As time has passed and experts have had the opportunity to study things further, they have categorized Oresnik as an experimental hybrid missile, a missile that sits in a category between intercontinental and intermediate range, which means that it has a range of around 3,000 miles. That range means that the missile can easily strike Britain. Experts concur with Putin. No modern air defense systems in the world, including missile defense systems created by Americans in Europe, can intercept such Russian missiles. Clearly, Russia was not looking to make a military point. Russia meant to simply make a political point, a message to the world. Russia can hit almost any target in Europe and the UK. Meanwhile, the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has rejected any suggestion that the UK is at war with Russia. He has only underscored UK's unwavering support for Ukraine, saying that Putin cannot be allowed to win this war. But the question is no longer about the UK's or the NATO's commitment towards Ukraine, you see. The question is about how prepared the UK is, or how prepared the NATO is, to actually sustain an attack from Russia if Putin is pushed to fire an Oresnik missile, or maybe something stronger than that. The bottom line is that as it stands right now, Ukraine supporters, the countries that push this war on Ukraine in a way, are involved in a limitless asymmetrical war with Russia. Putin has already relaxed Russia's nuclear doctrine, which now hypothetically allows Russia to use nuclear weapons against a non-nuclear armed state like Ukraine. Remember, nuclear warnings are no longer just a tactic to deter NATO. It's no longer a strategy to intimidate the West. It has become a very real possibility. As for the question of whether Putin would actually push the world into a nuclear war, realistically, it does not seem likely. However, Putin does have another nuclear option available, targeting Ukraine's nuclear power plants. Last week, in fact, Greenpeace warned that Ukraine's power network is at a heightened risk of catastrophic failure. Russian airstrikes have aimed at Ukraine's electricity substations. The safety of Ukraine's 3 operational nuclear power plants is now in danger. And if the reactors lost power, they could basically quickly become unstable. And what happens then, you ask? No points for guessing. Radiation leak. Even a second Chernobyl-like situation. Remember, in 1986, Ukraine was the site of the world's worst nuclear disaster. In fact, on Sunday, UN's nuclear watchdog, the IAEA, reported that main power lines from substations to the 3 nuclear power stations had been cut. The 3 plants, by the way, account for about 2/3 of Ukraine's electricity. And as a result, Ukraine has been facing a harsh, powerless winter. Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians are spending up to 6 hours at a time in the dark, without heat, without light, and without running water. But Ukraine is freezing not just because of Russian strikes, but also because of corruption. Reports indicating that government corruption in Ukraine has stalled a secret project to protect the energy grid. According to The Times, Britain is secretly assisting Ukraine in constructing a concrete structure to safeguard its energy grid. In June this year, Mustafa Nayyem, head of an agency responsible for protecting critical infrastructure in Ukraine, resigned, citing government failures. Nayyem alleged that there were deliberate delays in funding for a 1.4 billion bunker project aimed at substations. He claimed that bribes were not paid to officials, leading to project halts. His replacement, Sergei Sukhomlin, indicated that contractors were seeking excessive profits and that contracts were being renegotiated to cut costs. Meanwhile, contractors are struggling to continue work due to the lack of government funds and have had to take out loans. Which then brings us back to the core issue as far as Ukraine is concerned, corruption. It remains a big barrier to Ukraine's accession into the European Union, after all. As a result, now Ukraine relies on basic protective measures. Advanced systems are provided by its Western partners. But as long as corruption remains a problem in Ukraine, forget about Russia, Ukraine will remain its own worst enemy. And shifting focus from one nuclear crisis in Europe to one in West Asia, Iran will be holding nuclear talks with the UK, Germany and France. You heard that right. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Majid Takhtravanchi will meet his European counterparts in Geneva on Friday. The meeting reportedly comes after the collapse of a deal last week under which Iran would have limited its uranium enrichment to 60% purity. That is just below the threshold to make nuclear weapons. Last week, the UN nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, or the IAEA, had adopted a resolution of denouncing Iran for what it called a lack of cooperation. The 3 European countries, whose representatives will meet Iranian officials this week, were among those voting for the resolution. The move came as tensions ran high over Iran's nuclear program. Critics fear that it is aimed at developing a nuclear weapon, but that is something that Tehran has vehemently denied. But there are growing fears in the West that wider tensions in West Asia could result in Iran redoubling efforts to acquire a nuclear weapon and trying to declare it necessary for its national self-defense. Iran responded to the IAEA censure motions by saying that it was pressing ahead with its nuclear program at a faster pace. On Sunday, the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, Mohammad Bagher Kalibaf, confirmed that Iran had activated new and advanced centrifuges. In response to the IAEA vote, Iran said it would fire about 5,000 new generation centrifuges and increase the enrichment capacity. Not just that, Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, also accused European powers of trying to politicize the IAEA. Araghchi even suggested the diplomatic path with Europe had not reached a dead end. The Iranian foreign minister has said that talks towards a revival of the nuclear deal could still happen. He also said that a complete restoration of the nuclear deal, the 2015 deal, was not on the cards, but provided an outline pointing to a future agreement. Just for some context here, in the year 2015, Iran had reached an agreement with world powers, including the US, to curb its nuclear program. This was basically due to concerns that Iran was potentially developing nuclear weapons. But in 2018, during President Donald Trump's first term in office, the US unilaterally withdrew from the agreement, imposing sanctions on Iran, and that move stoked tensions between Washington and Tehran. And since then, Tehran has scaled back its cooperation with the IAEA, deactivating surveillance devices put in place by the UN. Now, is this new meeting with France, Germany and the UK an attempt by Iran to expand its circle of friends in Europe and basically safeguard itself against Trump's second term? All signs do point to this. In fact, in the past, Iran has expressed disappointment with Europe for not moving away from the US. Can Iran reach a nuclear deal with the European powers? We will have to wait and see what happens next. And staying with West Asia, has Hezbollah turned Israeli missiles against its makers? A weapon designed to protect Israel is reportedly now being used against it by one of its fiercest adversaries. According to the New York Times, Hezbollah has reverse engineered an Israeli weapon captured nearly 2 decades ago. Hezbollah has taken a Spike anti-tank missile considered a cutting-edge Israeli creation, re-engineered it and turned it into a weapon called the Almas, which means diamond in Persian and Arabic. But you see, this missile is not just a cheap knockoff. It's reportedly a sophisticated, precision-guided missile that's hitting Israeli military installations, air defense systems and communications networks. Sounds intriguing, right? Let's tell you more. As per reports, it all started in 2006 during the Israel-Hezbollah war in Lebanon, when Hezbollah fighters reportedly seized an entire anti-tank Spike missile system from the battlefield and shipped it straight to Iran for cloning, where Iranian engineers dismantled and dissected the weapon reportedly and reproduced it. Fast forward 18 years. Israel is now, in a way, facing its own technological prowess, repackaged into the Almas missile. With a range of over 16 kilometers and the ability to strike targets from above, Almas can reportedly carry advanced guidance seekers to track and lock onto targets. It is also known as a top attack missile, which in simple terms means that the missile's trajectory can strike targets from directly above instead of sideways and hit targets like tanks from above, where they are lightly armored and vulnerable. As per experts, Almas can carry 2 types of warheads, one that can penetrate heavy armor, while the other is a bomb that explodes into a massive fireball. That's not all. The weapon does not need a direct line of sight to its target, making it rather versatile to be launched from vehicles, drones, helicopters, and even be launched from the shoulder of a fighter. How exactly did this happen? How did Israel's own technology become a weapon in the hands of Hezbollah? According to the New York Times report, it was simply due to a case of glaring failure in battlefield logistics. As per the report, Israeli defense officials admitted that after the 2006 war, they discovered discrepancies in their equipment inventory. An entire Spike missile system, including launchers and missiles, were unaccounted for, and the fear of it falling into enemy hands became a grim reality. As per reports, Almas is not the first time Iran has reverse-engineered foreign military technology. In fact, they have reportedly cloned American drones, missiles, and other advanced systems. But experts say that Almas stands out. Because, you see, it's not just about replication, it's about innovation. Iran and Hezbollah are producing missiles like Almas that are not only as good as the originals, but in some cases even better. And the Almas, by the way, is not limited to Lebanon. As per experts, variants of this missile could soon be deployed across all Iranian proxy fronts, threatening targets well beyond Israel. And reportedly, Hezbollah is no longer reliant solely on Iranian supply lines. They are also reportedly manufacturing these missiles in Lebanon itself, making it even harder for Israel to cut off the flow of weapons. Now, let's just pause here for a moment. You see, this is not just about missiles. This is about adaptability, turning the opponent's strengths into your own. What was once Israel's technological edge has now become a shared weapon in a way, and now Israel is grappling with this grim reality. As per reports, over the past 2 months, as the IDF advanced into southern Lebanon, they uncovered stockpiles of Almas missiles along with other weapons, including Russian-designed Kornet anti-tank systems, with Almas reportedly standing out as one of the more sophisticated weaponry among a large cache of munitions. So how exactly does Israel counteract a weapon created by its own innovation? Will it rethink its defense strategies, perhaps enhance its surveillance capabilities, and perhaps most importantly, secure its technological secrets more effectively? Because for Israel, it is not just about the immediate threat of the Almas, but also the deeper issue of how its adversaries are leveraging its own strengths against it. Meanwhile, small drones were spotted last week around 3 US Air Force bases in eastern England. US Air Forces have said that they had multiple unidentified drones detected near bases in Lakenheath, Mildenhall, and Feltwell between Wednesday and Friday. These bases are used by American forces. US Air Forces Europe saying that these drones were actively monitored after being seen near and over the 3 bases. The Air Force did not identify who was behind the incursions, but said that base officials determined there was no impact on the residents or critical infrastructure. Lakenheath is home to the 48th Fighter Wing, which the US Air Force describes as the foundation of its combat capability in Europe. The base in Mildenhall hosts the 100th Air Refueling Wing, while Feltwell is a hub for housing, schools, and other services. While the Air Force did not reveal specific protection measures, it said it retained the right to protect the installation, adding that it was monitoring the airspace. While it's unclear whether the drones had hostile intent, the incidents came during a week that saw the most significant escalation of hostilities in Ukraine since Russia's full-scale invasion. Ukraine struck targets inside Russia with intermediate-range missiles supplied by the US and Britain after President Biden and Prime Minister Keir Starmer authorized the use of the weapons. And in response, Russia launched a new intermediate-range ballistic missile at Ukraine, and President Putin said his country had the right to strike countries that allow their weapons to be used against Russia. On to Bangladesh now, where the police have detained a senior priest of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON. Chinmoy Krishna Brahmachari Das is a strong advocate of rights of the Hindu minority in the country. In fact, the detention comes amid tensions over minority rights and has added fuel to the fire. The additional commissioner, Rezol Karim Malik of the Dhaka Metropolitan Police's Detective Branch, confirmed that Chinmoy Krishna had been taken into custody. He was detained after a complaint. Brahmachari Krishna Das has been in trouble with the law earlier as well. A case was filed against him in October after he led a rally in Chittagong city, and there he was accused of disrespecting the Bangladeshi flag. Local media reports saying the ISKCON priest will be handed over to the designated police station. Many supporters of Chinmoy Krishna Das gathered outside Bangladesh's Detective Branch office protesting his detention. The Ukraine war has reached a critical juncture. Moscow claims Donald Trump's circle is discussing a peace plan, while Biden's administration doubles down on escalation. Amid shifting front lines, Kiev faces mounting pressure as the West shows signs of division. Our next report getting you more.
Ukraine's strategic thrust into Russia's Kursk region, aimed at disrupting Moscow's advances and strengthening its negotiation leverage, has backfired. Ukrainian military admits that Russian forces have reclaimed over 40% of the territory in Kursk, which Ukraine had earlier seized in August, and continue to advance in eastern Donetsk. Russian troops now continue to march, forcing Ukrainians to retreat. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky warns that his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin's ultimate goal remains unchanged: to fully occupy the Donbass and expel Ukrainian forces from contested regions. The shifting dynamic on both military and diplomatic fronts signal a potential turning point in the conflict. Moscow is saying that Trump's peace plan hints at a potential policy shift in Washington, contrasting starkly with Biden's hardline stance. In the last week, Joe Biden allowed Ukraine to fire long-range missiles inside Russia, send controversial anti-personnel mines to Ukraine, and released fresh military aid.
Из круга сторонников Трампа и тех, кто был номинирован на будущие должности, будущая администрация, слово «мир» или «мирный план» звучит из уст представителей действующей администрации.
NATO's leadership, recognizing the gravity of the moment, rushed to the US to hold discussions with President-elect Donald Trump in Florida. The details are not known, but the military bloc is anxious given Trump's stance towards NATO. On the other hand, cracks appear in the Western alliance as France implicitly criticizes Germany's reluctance to provide long-range missiles to Ukraine. Facing crumbling front lines, Zelensky pivots, claiming that Ukraine has every chance to end the war next year. As Biden continues to arm Ukraine, which is in contrast with Trump's peace overtures, the Russia-Ukraine war now enters a critical juncture. The big question: when and how will the war end? Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Has Pakistan become the new Lebanon? We're asking that question because just like Lebanon witnessed chaos in the 1970s, Pakistan is also facing chaos. The chaos, by the way, is created from within. Let's break this down for you. In Pakistan's northwest district of Kurram, there is a sense of unease today. Pakistani officials have announced a 7-day truce following 3 days of violent clashes between rival sectarian groups. The clashes resulted in the deaths of over 60 people. So what really happened? The violence was triggered last on November 21, when unidentified gunmen opened fire on passenger vehicles, killing over 40 in the Kurram district. Here, armed Shia and Sunni Muslims have engaged in tribal and sectarian rivalry for decades over a land dispute near the Afghanistan border. In retaliation, residents in the area of Kurram targeted Sunni Muslims. The Pakistan government is yet to name who the attackers were publicly, and no one has claimed responsibility. Earlier on Sunday, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's Law Minister Aftab Alam Afridi said that after a truce is agreed upon, quote-unquote, we can begin addressing the underlying issues. And there are some serious underlying issues here. While sectarian killings are common in the country, Kurram has a history of violence rooted in governance failures, tribal rivalries, and external geopolitical influences. You see, Kurram is close to the Afghan provinces of Logar, Paktia Khost, and Nangarhar to the south and east of Kabul. Kurram also has multiple border crossings along the 192-kilometer Durand line to its west. This also includes the Pewar Kotal Pass, through which the shortest route to Kabul passes. According to reports, Shias make up around 45% of Kurram's population. That's more than thrice their 10 to 15% share in Pakistan's population as a whole. The majority of Shias live in Upper Kurram Tehsil, while Sunnis dominate Lower and Central Kurram. Upper Kurram, by the way, also has far better literacy and economic development indicators. Therefore, sectarian tensions are often an extension of the persistent tribal rivalries and the competition for resources. It's a region not blessed with abundance. During the British Raj, in fact, patronage and bribery benefited certain groups at the cost of others. This led to deep-seated grievances that continued to surface in the form of land disputes from time to time. But even after the British left, not much changed in the way the region was ruled. Kurram became part of the federally administered tribal areas, or FATA, where early 20th century laws applied until as recently as 2018. That's when FATA was merged with Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The Islamic Revolution and the creation of a Shia theocracy in Iran in 1979 gave rise to geopolitical competition between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Kurram became a proxy battleground, with the Iranians and the Saudis backing the Shia and Sunni groups respectively. And it was at this time that old tribal fault lines started to assume an overtly sectarian character. And then, during the decade-long Soviet-Afghan War of 1979 to 89, Kurram became a launching pad for the US-backed Mujahideen. It was also a refuge for the mostly Sunni Afghans who were fleeing the conflict in Afghanistan. And over the past 3 decades, several militant groups, including the anti-Shia Pakistani Taliban and Islamic State, have made Kurram their base. They move back and forth across the porous Pakistan-Afghanistan border, using the remote mountainous terrain to their advantage. But it wasn't just external factors. The policies of General Zia-ul Haq, who was Pakistan's military ruler from 1977 to 1988, was perhaps the most important contributor to the present situation in Kurram. You see, Sunni Islamization was at the center of Zia's political project. It gave rise to sectarian tensions across Pakistan. In Kurram, Zia used the influx of Sunni Afghan refugees to weaken the Shia Turi population. All this triggered intermittent sectarian violence in Kuram, especially after the rise of the Afghan Taliban over the past 3 decades. The Tehreek-e-Taliban has also tapped into some of these local grievances. Grievances around the lack of governance, lack of government, lack of development. Over the years, the situation has only fanned the flames of sectarian divisions. According to official Pakistan data, more than 2,000 people, both Shia and Sunni, have been killed between 2007 and 2011. 5,000 more have been injured. Tens of thousands have been displaced. According to official Pakistan government data, this year has seen bloodshed since late July, when a land dispute between Shia and Sunni tribes led to the killings of almost 50 people in an area south of Parachinar. Shifting focus for now, China has reportedly created a new stealth material so advanced that it could redefine aerial combat and national security, allowing fighter jets to slip past enemy defenses with near invisibility. The Chinese military reportedly has unveiled a stealth material capable of blinding anti-stealth radars. But before we go any further, it's important to first understand the existing problems regarding stealth aircraft. You'd see anti-stealth radars emit electromagnetic waves, and the materials currently coated on stealth aircraft reportedly are unable to effectively absorb these long wave signals, making them easy to be detected, especially on enemy radars. However, scientists at China's National University of Defense Technology reportedly have created a coating as thin as 2 sheets of standard printing paper that can absorb electromagnetic waves, especially low-frequency electromagnetic waves emitted by anti-stealth radars. These radars, designed to expose stealth fighters like the US F-22 and F-35, reportedly operate on long wavelengths that most stealth coatings struggle to counter. But now China says it has found the answer. This new coating reportedly converts electromagnetic waves emitted from radars into heat and quickly dissipates them into the air, thereby neutralizing detection by anti-stealth radars. And reportedly, this new coating material is lightweight, it's flexible, it's cheap to produce, reportedly making it ready for mass application across military platforms. As per experts, for years, anti-stealth technology was seen as the Achilles heel of stealth aircraft. Many countries, including the US, reportedly invested billions to maintain radar invisibility. But this new material may just change that. As per reports, China's approach uses metamaterials, a type of synthetic material that basically has unique properties not found in nature. By embedding this in the aircraft's coating, the material induces currents when hit by electromagnetic waves from radars, and these currents dissipate as heat, effectively rendering the aircraft undetectable to long-wave radars. And China is not stopping there, by the way. Like we told you earlier this year in February, a team of scientists from Western China had announced a plasma stealth device capable of shielding critical sections of an aircraft from radar detection. Vulnerable areas like radar domes, cockpits, and other spots that are most prone to enemy radar detection. Further evidence of China's aggressive push to try and dominate stealth warfare. So are these advancements as much about technology as they are about strategy? Because you see, a stealth aircraft equipped with this material could penetrate enemy territory undetected, perhaps nullifying existing air defense systems. potentially reshaping military dynamics on a global scale. So will other countries rise to this challenge, or will China gain an unassailable advantage, a crucial one? One thing is clear, the race for stealth supremacy has reached a whole new point, and the stakes continue to rise. On to some news now from the Philippines, where the Vice President and President are at loggerheads and things seem to be getting uglier with each passing day. In a rather extreme step, Vice President Sara Duterte threatened to have President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. killed if she herself were to be killed. Let that sink in. And following this, security agencies in the country raised safety measures and dubbed it a national concern. And what's more, on Monday, the president vowed to fight back against what he called reckless and troubling threats. Let's break it all down for you. Speaking during a morning press briefing, Duterte reportedly said that she had spoken to an assassin and instructed him to kill the president, his wife, and the House of Representatives Speaker if she were to be killed first. Before making what is being called a brazen threat in a broadcast on her official Facebook page, Duterte said, and I'm quoting here, "This country is going to hell because we are led by a person who does not know how to be a president and who is a liar," quote unquote. Not just that, she warned that her alleged threats are no joke. And now, in response to this, the president of the Philippines has reportedly said that he will fight the vice president's criminal plot to have him killed, quote unquote. Reports suggesting the national police and the military immediately boosted the security of the president in a matter which is now being considered a national security concern. The law and order authorities in the Philippines are now investigating the matter closely, which could have consequences for the vice president if proven true, involving prosecution if Duterte's claims are found to be evidence-backed.
It's worrying, the statements that we heard from the past days. There are numerous expletives and threats and plans to assassinate some of us.
But how exactly did things even reach this point? How did they get this far? According to reports, Duterte, who is the daughter of the country's former president, Rodrigo Duterte, had previously accused President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. of incompetence. Not just that, Duterte had also said that she imagined killing the president using violent measures. This marks a widening rift between the two most powerful political families in the country. In fact, in June, Duterte resigned from the Marcos cabinet while still remaining the vice president. Reports suggest Sara Duterte and Ferdinand Marcos Jr. are at odds over foreign policy as well as former President Rodrigo Duterte's war on drugs. Over the years, the two leaders had a bitter falling out over key differences, which also includes their approaches to China's aggressive actions in the South China Sea. However, tensions between the two escalated after the House members, allied with House Speaker Martin Romualdez and Marcos, decided to detain her chief of staff, Zuleika Lopez. And why is that? Because Lopez was reportedly accused of hampering a congressional inquiry into the possible misuse of Duterte's budget as vice president and education secretary. Following this, Romualdez slashed the vice presidential office's budget by nearly 2/3. And the estranged Vice President Duterte went all guns blazing, targeting Marcos, his wife, and the House Speaker reportedly. That's not all. Duterte even hinted at an unspecified plot allegedly made to kill her. Under Philippine law, such public remarks may constitute a crime of threatening to inflict a wrong on a person or their family and are punishable by a jail term and fine. At this point, it won't be an exaggeration to say that Philippines is currently facing a national crisis in line with its political crisis. And now as the country is gearing up for midterm elections in May 2025, which is increasingly being seen as a litmus test for the president's popularity and a chance for him to consolidate power, what lies ahead for the people of the country is the question. We now shift our focus to an issue of serious concern. Public figures making unverified claims about serious illnesses. Former cricketer and politician Navjot Singh Sidhu is under fire for his recent remarks about his wife's recovery from stage 4 breast cancer. His statements have drawn sharp criticism from leading oncologists across India who warn that such claims could mislead vulnerable patients. Let's first get to the details. Sidhu, in a press conference last week, credited his wife Navjot Kaur's recovery to dietary and lifestyle changes. He claimed that remedies like consuming raw turmeric, neem leaves, lemon water, juices from various fruits and vegetables, along with avoiding dairy and sugar, were pivotal for her recovery from cancer. These assertions, however, reportedly lack scientific backing, and experts are now sounding alarm. On social media, Dr. C.S. Pramesh, director of Tata Memorial Hospital, strongly refuted Sidhu's claims. In a public statement signed by 262 oncologists, doctors from the hospital made it clear that there is no high-quality evidence to support the idea that such dietary practices can cure cancer, emphasizing that proven treatments like surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation remain the cornerstones of cancer care. The hospital statement also highlighted the risks of delaying or abandoning evidence-based treatments in favor of unproven remedies. Cancer is curable if detected early, but only with treatment supported by clinical evidence, quote unquote. That is what the oncologists said in their statement. Dr. Pramesh on the platform X specifically pointed out that Navjot Kaur underwent surgery and chemotherapy, standard treatments that are backed by decades of research. You see, Sidhu's remarks have sparked a larger, heated debate about the role of celebrities in influencing public health discourse. When a high-profile figure does this, it can lead to widespread confusion. As per the Indian Council of Medical Research, ICMR, breast cancer is already the most common cancer among women in India, accounting for over 28% of all cases. The 5-year survival rate in India standing at just 66.4%, far behind developed countries like the US, where it's over 90%. Now, this disparity reportedly is largely due to delayed diagnosis and lack of access to proper care. Claims like Sidhu's further compound the problem. They exploit fears and hopes of patients who might abandon scientifically proven treatments for other alternatives. Dr. Mandeep Singh Malhotra, Director of Surgical Oncology at C.K. Birla Hospital, New Delhi, highlighted that a collaborative approach involving oncologists, dietitians, and caregivers is essential to create safe, effective, and personalized nutritional strategies against cancer, emphasizing that only by tailoring dietary plans to the patient's specific cancer type, stage, and treatment can results be achieved. As per experts, in a country already grappling with widespread distrust in scientific medical systems in a way, misinformation can have devastating consequences. If unproven therapies could cure cancer, why do thousands of patients continue to suffer, many unable to access the treatments that they need? You see, the worry is that Sidhu's remarks can end up undermining years of progress in medical research and public health awareness. This is not just about one celebrity or one illness or one case. It's about holding public figures accountable for the influence that they wield and the lives their advice impacts. What comes to your mind when I talk about the most unsafe place for women? Some public space, perhaps? A place where they are vulnerable and at the risk of harm? What if I told you that women are the most unsafe at home? That home is the most dangerous place for them. I'm not the one saying that. The United Nations is. Yes, this is appalling and heart-wrenching. The figures will send shivers down your spine. These are bone-chilling findings I'm about to mention. You see, one would think when women step out of their homes is when they would be unsafe because, home is where they should be and should feel the most safe and secure, right? Where they can let go of their guard, where they can just be. Unfortunately, that is not the case. As per a United Nations report, 85,000 women and girls were killed intentionally by men in 2023. 85,000 women and girls. And it gets worse, by the way. 60% of these deaths were committed by someone close to the victim. Imagine. How heartbreaking, right? This is infuriating, to say the least. The report released by UN Women and the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, that is UNODC, shows that in 2023, 140 women and girls died every day at the hands of their partner or a close relative. You know what that means? One woman killed every 10 minutes. Let me just say that again. A woman killed every 10 minutes. In fact, the figures show that globally the most dangerous place for a woman to be was in her home. Where the majority of women die at the hands of men, the report sheds light on the global crisis of femicide and calls for urgent action. In fact, according to the report, Africa recorded the highest rates of intimate partner and family-related femicides, with 21,700 women killed last year, followed by the Americas and Oceania. Femicide, in case you weren't aware, is defined as the gender-related killing of women and girls. According to the UN Women Executive Director, there is a need for robust legislation, improved data collection, greater government accountability, a zero-tolerance culture, and increased funding for women's rights organizations and institutional bodies. You see, this is a crisis that cannot be ignored. This is about the future of women and girls. Their basic safety. The time to act is now. Where are women safe? If not at home, where should they go? On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching.